So with the ridge board, my plan was to have the overhang at the front and the back of the shed be 6 inches, but what I had to do was minus the width of a 2x6 at the front and the rear for the fascia boards, because I was planning to nail or screw the fascia boards directly to the front and back of that ridge board that I just had in my hands there. So here I was putting on the double top plates, 2x4s. So as you can see in the corner there, in order to get my ridge board up, I put 2x4s at each end of the ridge board. So it was technically, I guess, a ridge beam. And then here I'm measuring out my rafters. The pitch on this roof was 412. So I just used my framing square to measure up the angles at the ends of the rafters, and then I used my jigsaw to cut out the bird's mouth for the edge where it meets with the top plate. So once I had one or two that were good to go, I just used it as a template, and then I cut out the rest of the rafters, and they're all 2x4 rafters. So the spacing of my roof rafters were at 24 inches on center, and then I had the overhang rafters at the front and the back were 6 inches out to the front of the fascia boards. And my fascia boards are all the way around the shed at the front and the back gable ends were all 2x6 fascias. I ended up not recording the sheathing process of the roof, the fascia boards, or the shingling, and the soffit and fascia, but I can talk to it briefly as we go through this. So I got all my supplies from Home Depot for the soffit and the fascia and the shingles. I ended up using the cheap 3-tab shingles that I got at Home Depot. They were black. I put a 15-pound felt underlay underneath it, with first putting down the aluminum drip edge around the top edges of the roof. So I did the aluminum drip edge first, that was white, and then I laid down the 15-pound felt, and then I put down the 3-tab shingles. I just used the 3-tab shingles for the starter course, just flipped around, and then I cut out the ridge cap from the 3-tab shingles as well, just with an angle. You can Google how to do that. It's pretty simple to do with a hook blade on your utility knife. And then the fascia boards I covered up with aluminum trim. They're aluminum L fascia coverings. You can also get at Home Depot. They're pretty sturdy and they're pretty nice quality. So I ended up going with closed soffits, and I didn't have any vents on the roof because I wanted to keep the entire building pretty dry, and also it doesn't get too extremely hot here, and there's a bit of tree cover for this building, for the structure, and I didn't expect that I would need huge amount of ventilation. but when I'm in there in the summertime, I can just keep the door open and there's still some airflow through the tops of the soffits. So here I'm putting in the door. Also got this door at Home Depot. It was actually on sale. The cheap door that goes for about $200 just has the hole for the handle, but this one was actually on sale at the time that had the half window at the top and then the double holes in the door for the deadbolt and the handle. So that was pretty handy because I wanted the extra security of the deadbolt and to have a nice window in it just to give it some good look to it. So hanging the door was a bit of a pain in the butt. I ended up having to do it like 3 times before I got it to sit the way that I wanted it to. So I had to square it up first, and then I put in the shims, and then I screwed the hinge side in first, and then the other side, and then the top. I put down caulking beneath the sill plate before I popped in the door. And then once I had the door on, I put in all the J trim for the vinyl siding. The vinyl siding that I got was also from Home Depot. That was in stock. It was clay color, I believe it was called, and it was readily available at Home Depot with all the corner pieces and the J channel and the starter strip and all that for the vinyl siding. So over top of the wall sheathing, I use Tyvek building wrap that I also got from Home Depot, and then I just overlapped it as I went up the building, and then I tuck taped all the seams to make sure that it was all watertight. So it was pretty straightforward to put the vinyl siding on the shed because all my walls were short enough that I didn't have to overlap the long lengths of vinyl siding. So once I started cutting and trimming to the right size, it was pretty fast actually once I had the outside corner pieces on. So one lesson learned here from applying the vinyl siding was that I probably should have chalked a few lines where all the wall studs were, because I was probably only about halfway through before I realized that it probably would have been stronger to nail all the vinyl siding into the studs instead of just getting it going through the sheathing. So I was using roofing nails to mount all the vinyl siding, leaving a bit of space, of course, between the holes and the walls, because you need to leave room for expansion and contraction of the vinyl. So the vinyl siding, you start with your outside corner pieces on a wall like this, and then you put down your starter strip at the bottom, and then your first piece of vinyl siding will hook into the bottom. So here, the outside corner piece is going on, and then next I'll do my starter strip at the bottom, get them all level, get them plumb, get the outside corner pieces plumb, get the starter strip level, and then you can start with your first piece of vinyl siding. Make sure that it lines up with your other walls. So if you're looking at it from the corner, your one wall isn't higher than the other piece of vinyl siding. You want them to be relatively level with each other, so that way it flows nicely from one wall to the next. And then as you're going up the wall, make sure you're checking with the level to make sure that your vinyl siding is staying level as you go up the wall. So the hardest part was once I got to the tops of the wall where I had to cut angles. The aviation snips that I were using were nice and easy to cut straight cuts, but it was pretty difficult to cut the angles and to measure the angles. So I ended up just using my framing square to get the angles right, and then I tried out the jigsaw, which worked okay, but sometimes the vinyl siding would crack unexpectedly. So there might be an easier way to cut the vinyl siding, or to use a different type of aviation snip where it's a little easier to handle and cut. But you put the J channel at the top just underneath the soffits, so that way it trims out all of your cut edges, and then it holds in nice and tight. You can tuck in some extra vinyl siding where your cuts are at the J channel to make sure that your vinyl siding stays tight in the J channel and doesn't flop around in the wind. So there it was back at the front wall. The front wall here was pretty hard to do because that balcony was in the way, so it was a pain in the butt to get my arms up there to trim out the vinyl siding at the top, but I managed to complete it. And then I put my door lock set in there, and then I'll do a final walk around video in the next one in real time, and then walk through the exterior and interior of the shed. Thanks for watching.